Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tim and today we'll be rebuilding this E36 M3 differential. It's a 188mm unit with a limited slip in it, and we'll be replacing the clutch plates, the pinion bearings, the crown wheel bearings, even the bushings for this holder here. Everything needed for a full rebuild. And here the bare minimum of parts we'll need: new bushings for the Diff cover, a clutch plate kit, limited slip specific oil 75-140, new bearings for both the pinion and the carrier, new seals for the side shafts, new O-rings for the side shaft, a new seal for the pinion, a gasket for the cover, an O-ring for the speed sensor, a new locking nut here, a new crush washer here, and new locking rings for the side shafts as well. Before we go ahead and take it apart, being that it's still sealed, well, now would be a good time to just run over it with a brush of some sort to get all the loose sitting dirt and rust scales off. With it somewhat clean, now we need to drain it. Instead of just cracking this bottom plug here loose with a size 14, well, I'm actually gonna remove the entire cover with these 8 bolts here. Now let's see. It doesn't smell particularly old. There's a bit of silver in it. A bit shimmery, but nothing crazy. Let's see what the current backlash is. Spec is between 0.06 and 0.14, and when we do this, it's about 9 or so, so right in the middle. Now there's one more thing that we can test, and that is the breakaway torque, and for an M3 it's 50 to 75 Newton meters. So here I have this small tool here, and then with this homemade tool, starting to slip, and now it is slipping. 25 Newton meters. So clutch plates are definitely worn. Before we take it apart, we'll just mark the right side here, because you must not switch up between the left and right when it comes to these axle bearing caps here. The way I do it is I grab a punch and then I just make a mark on only the right side here. If I clean them and paint them and so on, I'll always be able to find this mark right here. Pop out the axle with a tire iron or a big ass screwdriver. That's one. Grab the next one, and now we can begin removing the bearing caps. Just be gentle. This here being the left side. Whoops, we'll just, and here the shim. 1.75 millimeters. This one was situated like this. And here we have the right shim, 1.6. And now we can remove the actual locking diff here. Now we'll have to take this apart much further later on, but for now we'll just put this aside and focus on the differential housing. And next up for the housing, well, we'll have to remove the pinion. Down here we have a locking ring. Like this. And then we'll remove this nut here, and here a size 30 6-point socket. Just remove this. You can actually remove this in several ways. The main thing here is to never hammer directly on this, as you'll maybe have it expand and thus the threads destroyed, or if you just smack it straight on with a hammer, then you might also destroy it. The threads, that is. You can add this to it here. If you keep doing this, it will budge sooner or later, but what I like to do is simply take it to a press and then press it out. So much easier with a press, and if you leave this one here on while you press it out, it won't be able to drop to the bottom and hit whatever is below the diff, because this one here has a bigger circumference than this bearing here. We can now focus on the rest of the disassembly of this differential housing here. First, the seal. Then we can remove this one as well. Down here, there's a bearing. We'll just keep smacking it with this punch here, and then it will come out. And the same goes for the upper bearing here. And then with the bearing removed, now for a very crucial thing. There. This one is what sets the pinion depth. Very important that you don't get this lost here. You'll need this later on. This thickness here, 3.6. 3.6. For this next part here, that one is a bit more tricky, meaning that it's further down the differential. What I do is I take just a regular extension. Easy. Ready to be cleaned and painted. We'll just put this aside and start focusing on the actual pinion instead. And now it starts to get a little bit tricky with the actual rebuild. This is one of the, maybe the only hard parts, and that is to actually remove and install these bearings here. You really have to be careful that you don't hit anything. And if you do hit it, you'll have to smoothen it out again, grind it out again, so that the contact surface here, bearing surface here, is completely clean again. But simply just slightly cracking it like this, you don't even need to fully crack it. Well, oftentimes they do come off after that. And that leaves us with this LSD unit here. The first thing we need to remove is this trigger wheel here. We just need to pin something. There. Now we can get to this bearing here. Let's try and remove the outer race first. Let's try and see if we can remove this bearing here. I'm really hoping I won't have to use the grinder for this one as well. That's one. There. With the bearings now removed, we can go ahead and uninstall this cap here and remove all the parts and lay them somewhat nicely next to it. Try and remove it in a star pattern. We'll leave this like this. The frost washer. Here we have a clutch disc, and it is indeed very worn. Small washer here. Good. Now it's completely taken apart. And this is how it all looks by now. Now you could go ahead and uninstall this ring gear here, but honestly it's not needed. And also if you do remove it, there's a very specific procedure for the install part as well. I actually think I'm gonna clean this separately and then I'll start assembling it with new clutch discs and see that it actually works as intended. Then I can put this rather complex array of parts together, put it away, and then I can focus on the other stuff that needs some seriously beautification being done to it. Now is a good time to start soaking the new clutch plates here in oil. Something like this. And just make sure it's covered in oil. And you can leave it there to soak for eternity, but in general just have it here so that when you start the assembly process, you're sure that the clutch plates and all here, well, that is sufficiently oiled before assembly. We'll put this to the side. Be sure to clean between the teeth and clean it on the inside as well. And be sure to clean the frets here as well. We're just going to add some brake cleaner to it and some compressed air. We also need to clean the inner parts of the diff here. We'll do that with obviously clean cloths. And then we'll face them exactly like they already are, in the same order they came out. This is the reason why we didn't have the correct breakaway torque. This is completely shattered. This here. We do have an issue here because, well, this face here isn't clean at all. It actually looks like shit. So we'll have to clean this off some way to have a smooth surface again. Here you can see it. And the same goes for this one as well. Just some deposits really. Here, some 280 grit. Okay. I had to cave in. This method here simply just didn't really cut it. This is better. It still takes some time, but now I can hardly feel the bumps. Only a few low spots can be felt with a finger, but all the high spots are gone. It's as good as it will get, and it's most likely good enough. And if it's not, well, we will definitely find out, and then we'll have to correct it. Being that we just removed some material from these two here, well, we need to do some measurements first. And BMW has a certain way of doing that. And to make it a bit easier on myself and for you, well, I've decided to number these like a BMW does. And then we're going to follow the BMW procedure and do the various measurements. Now, the first measurement we're going to do, we have to assemble in a certain order, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then rearwards. So also BMW says to assemble everything with limited slip oil on it so that, well, there are no dry parts rubbing against each other. A bit of oil. Then we're going to grab number 5 first. This one here. Then we're going to grab number 7. Then we're going to grab a clutch plate. And we're going to use this one here. Then we're going to grab the first number 10. Then pour some oil in it. Then grab this one here. Add a bit of oil to it. Gonna grab this. And we'll be grabbing this one here. Then we'll grab a clutch plate. This dog ear plate. Okay, with this fully seated here, we'll just do a measurement from the clutch disc to the edge of the housing here. (19.5). So we'll write down equals 19.5 millimeter. Next up, we need measurement B. This is a bit easier. This is simply from the plate here, from this part here to this part here. And 14.1. 14.1. Finally, we're going to take the 2 curved spring discs here. I'm going to measure the thickness of those combined. This is the C measurement. This is 5.2 millimeter. Now, the goal here is that measurement B and C should leave some room for the measurement A, if you will, so that these 2 numbers, B and C, added up should be smaller than the number A that you've made prior. And the spec for the required gap there should be between the space A takes up versus B and C is just right here. Spec equals 0.1 till 0.4. 14.1 plus 5.2 equals 19.3, and we have 19.5, meaning we have 0.2 millimeters of space. It seems as if even though we removed some material from the faceplate where the clutch pack is against, we're still within spec. So far, so good. All right, having checked everything is as it's supposed to be, now we're gonna install it properly and torque this cap here as well. This first washer here, that one has no direction. Simply install it in the bottom. This spring disc here, which has a curvature, broadly it goes like this. You want the curvature to face upwards. Then we have what BMW calls a tab washer. This thing right here has a smooth side and a not so smooth side. The smooth side is supposed to face the curved disc we just installed, the spring disc. And then there's a tab down at the bottom. And here we have something to be wary of, because right here, well, it can sit right here, but it's as if it's not sitting correctly. So we'll just flip it over so that the tab sits there. Now it's fully in place. Then we grab this guy here. So we'll just do that again. Here we have a disc spring. This one also has a curvature. And here with the inside curvature, right now it goes more or less like this here. Curvature facing upwards. And then the outer disc with the 4 tabs soaked in oil down here. Install this as is, there's no up or down. Then we need a clutch plate. Right here, no up or down as well. Then we take this frost ring, as BMW calls it. Install like this. Then we have this gear right here. Drop that one into place. Then we need these small gears here. Be sure that it actually engages and falls into these small ramp angles here. And install this on top of it. Then we need the next gear. And this one here. Drop that one into place. Then we need a clutch plate here, nicely soaked in oil. Then with the 4 tabs here. And then we have another disc spring here, and the curvature is to face downwards. Like this. Now the next part here is a bit more tricky. Issue arise when you try and install this. They will simply just fall out. BMW says to use grease here for them not to fall out. Here I have a little bit of bearing grease. We're just gonna add. That should be sufficient. Curvature down. And then smooth side down. Just remove the excess grease here. We'll just make sure that this surface here at least has plenty of oil. Now this can either face like this or like this. It doesn't really matter. You can't face it any way else. It won't fit. And these here can be slightly tight fit. There. Then we need to add some high strength thread locker. Then we're gonna torque it down in a star pattern. We only need to torque it till 22 Newton meters, really not that much. But before we get there, well, we're gonna do it just by hand until it is fully seated, and again in a slightly star pattern. We'll be able to torque it. We'll just place it here. Set this to 22 Newton meters. Now we can test the breakaway torque by now. There. I'm going to grab this specialty tool here. Let's try and set this to 30 Newton meters. 50 Newton meters. 17 Newton meters. Yep, there it slipped. And now I don't want to abuse it anymore. And we ended at around 75 Newton meters or so before it started slipping. 75 till 80 Newton meter breakaway torque. For the final assembly of this here, we'll need to add new locking rings to each side, and then the speed, then this trigger wheel here for the speed sensor. And then I have a inner race, a bearing race here, which just happens to fit down here, 82 millimeters. I'll also use another race here. It has bottomed all the way around. Good. Then this one is ready as well. And now we'll be preparing this housing here for a paint. That means we need to clean it first, make sure that every seating surface here, well, that is completely clean. We'll start by simply adding some soapy water to it. Then grab a bristle brush here. It's not fully cleaned yet, but now we can start the prepping work of it. Here you can see there's a small edge here because it's been, well, probably abused a lot. I'll just lay this edge down. There, now I can't feel that one. This here is a bit rusty. We'll just remove that as well. And obviously you'll have a lot of dirt coming into the differential housing, so we'll in the end clean this insides out extremely thoroughly. And I'll just grab some 240 grit. And for the other side. And you really don't want anything harsher than a 240 grit, because the goal here is to not remove any metal, but simply cleaning the surface here. And then the final mating surface here. Something like this. Now we're going to clean out all the threads here. Goes for each and every single one of them. Now for cleaning these threads here, every time you run a tap through them, you actually remove some material. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to just take some regular bolts here, and we're going to make a thread cleaner out of them. And it's actually quite easy to do that. We simply make a small slit or a notch in it here. And then you can just use a little bit of oil to have it stick. bottomed out. Let's see if it picked up anything. Not really. These threads here are somewhat clean, but we're still gonna go through them. If you can screw it in and out with a finger, that's a pretty good sign that the threads are cleaned. All right, these here are clean. No issues here. We'll still blow it out with brake cleaner and some air, but threads are at least clean. Then let's test these here. This one here looks to be dirty. Yep. Definitely something coming out here. And it did pick up quite a bit of dirt in this slit. Then finally, this one here. This did pick up some dirt. Now it's ready for a very thorough cleaning and being blown out with compressed air and well, everything we really can do to actually clean it. And here we're just going to use some brake cleaner really. Fresh, clean cloths. And then you just really keep on doing this until you're satisfied with the result. Now it's ready for some paint. And for paint, we're going to use something called hammerite. Especially down here, you want to be careful not to paint the mating surfaces. A small brush really helps with this. And now we just wait for this paint here to dry before handling it any further. And next up, we have the bearing caps. Now, the bearing caps are probably one of the easiest ones to restore, but there is just one thing we need to make sure, and that is that, well, the new seal we're going to install here, that has to be situated, located exactly in the right place. So first, we'll just make a measurement from the outside to where the seal sits, and then from the inside to where the seal sits. 27.6, 20.5, and then we can go ahead and knock out the seal. We're simply going to use a punch. Just like that. And then for the bearing, easy. Finally, we have a O-ring. Then we just clean it up. Grab a new bearing. We'll just be coating it ever so slightly. Line up. Then we can use the old bearing cap. Put it in a vise. That is certainly bottomed out, and voila, we have a new bearing cap installed. And then for the seal, here I have some parts of a BMW E36 rear suspension differential bus extractor and installer. It just so happens that this cup here fits perfectly here and is exactly smaller than the actual bore here. So if you really want to make sure that it'll seal, well, then you'll just take just a small amount Then we'll install it, add this to it. .5, 20.6. Now this one here is ready for paint. With the bearing caps now waiting to dry, well, we can go ahead and clean this up as well. And this shim here, again, be sure not to mix them side to side. We can just get rid of these discolorations here. Something like this here. And we'll install these bolts here to not have any crap get into the threads while we clean them. Then we'll simply grab this old bristle brush here. Now, this diff cover here, that is very hard to clean by hand. Simply too many nooks and crannies. So what I've done is I've sandblasted it. As you can see, differential parts is a big no-no because all the abrasives get stuck in the middle, and then over time, as there's heat cycles and such, it will release itself and work its way into the diff. The way I've done it is that I've protected the threads with just installing these small screws here, and I've taped off, actually I glued on a piece of cardboard, and then I enforced the cardboard with some duct tape so that I could go ahead and blast it and not have anything get into it. Also these here installed as well, even though we'll be changing those. For the bushings here, what I did was I simply took the new bushing, and these here have a slot here. Well, I just matched the orientation of the slot with the new bushing, and then I used the new bushing to press out the old bushing while simply just pressing the new bushing in at the same time. And I found out that this here, this bearing shell here, this outer race fit perfectly here, and then I could just use the new bushing and press out the old bushing while pressing in the new bushing as well. Now that it's somewhat cleaned, we'll remove the cardboard here. And clean cloths. Now we have a at least somewhat clean cover. Let's tape it off and then we can paint it. And we'll be painting it using some Hammerite direct to rust metal paint. And then it's time for assembly of the differential. Very, very important. This shim here that we removed before installing the bearing here, well, we need to place the shim here as well. And then we have to knock this race back down in here. And for that, well, we're just gonna add a little bit of differential oil. Whoops. Place it there. And then we can actually use the old race here. We'll use a puller to install it. We've already used this tool here once before, but we're gonna do it again. It just so happens that this cup here kind of fits perfectly to actually pull it in. Now, by tightening this one here, we should be able to pull this one in at least most of the way. kinda seems like it bottomed out there. Let's try and take a look. Well, we just hit the housing. It's still not quite far enough in yet. Then we can just, let's try and use this one here, the old race. Now it's bottomed out, definitely. And we even managed to get it fully seated then. Then we need to install this bearing race here. Add some lube. Place that down there. I'm using the old bearing race here to push it in and really just make sure that it's going in straight. There, you heard that? Now it bottomed out. Good. And to install the pinion, well, we're going to stack a piece of wood, and in this case here, some block of rubber, and then grab the pinion here. Make sure we grab the new crush sleeve as well. Be sure to lube the bearings. I've lubed them quite a bit already, but you can never really add too much lube. And then we're gonna place this here. Lift this over. And now the diff is just barely floating above ground, so all the pressure is on the pinion end. Then we're gonna grab the new bearing. Place this here. Use the old crush washer. Take this pinion knot here. Now it's at least started. The issue is when we install this, there aren't any threads, so we can't kind of just screw it together. Let's see if we can. We're not really using any force here. One could take a block of wood and, well, at least get rid of the harsh noises here, but it's coming in rather nicely, so now we can go ahead and install the seal. Before we do that, we might as well just add a little bit of oil to the bearing here. We can lift this off, remove those, grab a new seal. To add the seal, first let's just make sure that the mating surface is dry. Then we'll add a tiny amount of gasket maker to the seal. Doesn't really have to be much at all, just a very thin layer. Add that here. Use the old pinion bearing here. Make sure that it's perfectly straight. And now it has bottomed out just below this ridge here. Now we get to a very critical stage, and that is that we need to have the right pinion preload. We'll make sure that it's oiled. Also make sure that the seal here is lubed as well. Then we'll grab the pinion nut here, a size 30. And then we need to fixate this flange here while we tighten this bolt here until we get the correct measurement. Then we'll grab this tool here, add that to the input flange, And then we'll start tightening this down until the slop here disappears. And then furthermore until we get the correct torque measurement. Now we need to use quite a lot of force to tighten it. So I'll be using a 6-point size 30 socket and a gigantic bar here. Let's try. Still some slop left. Less, but still some. Beginning. Need to be careful not to add too much. See, now the slop is gone now. Now it's 1 Newton meter. See here. Being that these here are Koyo bearings, I'll be sure to post all the pinion preload dependent on bearing type, so that if you don't use Koyo, you can still do it this way here. But for Koyo bearings, it's 1.27 till 2.65 Newton meter. And then you're supposed to add 0.2 Newton meters for a new seal, which means that it has to be somewhere between 1.5 and 2.8 Newton meters. And look at this, when we do this here, we land at just around 2.5 Newton meters. Definitely 2.5. Now, in case we had tightened it too much, then we'd be in a world of hurt, because we need to take it apart, and if you ask BMW, you'll have to use a new cross washer. But let me just show you how to reuse an old cross washer. First, we need to find some kind of socket that fits perfectly. Right now it's 20.5 millimeters. Just place that there. Then you simply start hammering away. Just make sure that this is tight. And you'll need to hammer on this raised part here. This is definitely not the most elegant way of doing it, but it does actually work. 20.7. You see? Then we need to lock it. Simply grab a new one of these here. Now it's in place. Good. This part here is done. Next up in assembling the diff here is that we install this carrier here, and then we check both the backlash and how the tooth pattern looks like. Then I'll grab this here, place it down here. And then it's important that we don't mess up the sides. Now I have oriented this so that as we took it apart, we said this was the right side, this was the left side. So we'll be taking the bearing cap here with the new bearing installed and the according shim that follows as well. Then this one here is to face upwards, meaning this direction here. And then we'll just add a bit of differential oil to this. Please notice that we haven't installed the O-rings yet. That makes it easier for us to install these bearing caps here. Then we'll grab the left side here, add more lube. Make sure this one is facing upwards. somewhere along here. Then for now, we'll also grab the old bolts here for the bearing caps. We will be replacing these, but for simply measuring and seeing everything is as it's supposed to be. Then we'll tighten them 22 Newton meters, and we'll tighten these in a star pattern as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Repeat for this side here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would appear everything is turning over smoothly. Now we need to check the backlash. Oh, there's a tiny amount. This dial gauge here is set up, not perfectly, but enough to see if we have any backlash at all. And check this out here. I can barely move it at all. Now, being that the backlash is no longer correct, that means that we need to kind of start over with these shims here because, well, we'll need to change out some shims to get the correct backlash. But being that something has shifted, which it usually doesn't, well, we also need to measure that whatever springs we have, that it actually results in the correct preload of these bearings here. So first we'll actually need to remove this ring gear here, this crown wheel here, and then we can install it with the current shims and check that the preload is correct. Put this carrier here in a vise. Make sure you have some aluminum jaws or something that doesn't damage the carrier here. Oh, that's one. These here are one-time use bolts. Please remember that. Then place 2 here just to keep it from totally dropping. No need to use big amount of forces. Just try and be gentle. Then we need to remove these here. And only now do I realize that, of course, we'll need to remove this trigger wheel here as well. And there it is. Boom. Quite a bit of dirt here. We'll have to meticulously clean and make sure it doesn't make its way into the actual clutch plates and all. And also this here will obviously also need some cleaning as well. Now, to measure the preload and thus whether or not the combined shim thickness here is correct, well, first we need to have this here placed in here. Make sure this is, according to BMW, it should be well lubricated but have any excess drip off by itself. I have lubricated it and have it dripped off here. I'll place this in here and we'll also be sure to make that this point here faces upwards. We'll grab the next one. Install a few screws here, tighten them down by hand. All right, now these are hand tightened, then back them out. Just one turn approximately. Crown, now the side across where the crown wheel would sit, these here we torque down to spec, which is 20 Newton meters. in a star pattern. Then raise it up. We're trying to measure the frictional torque, or the preload if you will. Notice how easily it spins now. Then we tighten these down here. Spins not as easily already. So it is adding some preload to it. Then we tighten it down now that we have verified that just tighten it by hand, that doesn't increase the preload too much at least. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then we'll install the axles. Make sure not to force it in. And now we can go ahead and check whether or not the preload is too big. Now the data here is that for the preload here, and we're using Koyo bearings, and I'll be sure to put up torque measurements for other bearing types here, but for the Koyo bearings, between 1.2 till 2.62 Newton meters of rolling resistance, if you will. And then you're supposed to add 0.2 Newton meter per new seal, and we've added a new seal here and here. So in theory we should add 0.4 Newton meters, so it becomes 1.6 Newton meters till 3 Newton meters, roughly speaking at least. Let's try it out. Grab this one here and see what it says. A half or so, so definitely too small. This here equals 0.5 Newton meter, so more or less just what the seals added. This one here is 1.6. Place that to the side. Grab this one here. Yeah, I'd say this is 1.5. Add that. Again, make sure that this surface here is clean. And then we'll try again, see what it is. Almost 1 Newton meter, still not quite enough. Okay, we'll just write 1.5 millimeter. This one remained unchanged, and that equals around, I'd say 0.8 till 1.0 Newton meter. Let's try and change this here till 1.4 or 4.5 and then see what happens. Yep, it's helping, but it's still not quite enough. Now it's 1.0 Newton meters. It would appear it's right around 2 Newton meters by now. 2 Newton meters. Okay, it's a bit of a messy affair here, but what we've ended up with is a total thickness 1.65 plus 1.45, total thickness 3.1 millimeters equals 2 till 2.5 at most Newton meters, and we want to hit around 2 Newton meters. So this, with the new seals, are actually pretty much perfect in terms of where we ended up. So far so good, but all this means is that now we know what the total thickness is for the preload to be correct. Now we still have the task of finding out how should this total thickness be divided so that we end up with the correct backlash. Okay, now that we have the combined shim thicknesses dialed in, Well, now we need to put it back together again so that we can measure the backlash. And to do that, well, I have cleaned this off here very thoroughly, and the same with this. I've cleaned out all the threads using an old bolt with a small ridge in it so that it cleans up the threads. I have also used 2 of the old bolts here to make some guides, as once we install this here to control it, well, we need these in so that we actually get it aligned properly, like there, for instance. See here, it doesn't fit, boom, fits there. And then having it heated up to 100 degrees Celsius, well, then hopefully it'll be able to be installed. All right, so now this is heated up. 94 degrees should be sufficient. We'll quickly add these 2 here and grab this. Jesus Christ. There, see? Then we'll grab the old bolts here and we'll use those just to secure the crown wheel so that it doesn't drop off. Then we'll just go ahead and let this here cool so we can add some Loctite to these here and start installing these in the right sequence and torque measurements. We need new bolts. We need some Loctite strong, and then first we do 100 Newton meter pull and then a 50-degree pull. Here you can see that the sequence is somewhat a star pattern. We'll start with this one here, and then as we go we'll remove the old ones, but the old ones here are just to keep this here in place as it cools down. And let's grab some Loctite strong. Then we'll just run them over here to make sure they're all seated. Then we'll do the first pass, 100 Newton meters. There, that. Every time we make a pass, we just add a small mark. Then number 2. $40 degrees. $50 degrees. Good. Then number 10. Good. That means finally we can go ahead and see if the backlash is correct. We'll just place this there. Make sure this one faces upwards. No O-ring attached. Only tighten them by hand. Try and see if we can even, well, we can spin it. What we're being careful of here is that, well, if we only tighten them by hand and it can't spin, then they mean they're way too locked against each other, and thus tightening them further will just damage the teeth. But it does spin, so let's just try and use a bit of tools here. Again, no excessive force, then we can go ahead and torque them instead. Let's see, we'll just 22 Newton meters, 6, just slightly past 0 and barely reaches 6, so it's in the low end, but honestly, we're not gonna do any more about it because, well, it's quite a big task, and although we're on the low end, well, this here will increase in time. So being on the low end is better than being in the high end. And then finally, we need to find out if the tooth pattern is correct. Just some light coats. So now I've added this here so we can give it some proper spinning. The other direction. I'm aware this is without breaking the crown wheel, without load, but we can still use the measurement here. This is the drive side and this is the coast side. Now on the drive side here, it's not too far in, it's not too far out, it's not too much towards the toe, it's a bit towards the heel. We run it without breaking it here. If you break the crown wheel while you spin it, all you do is you move this pattern slightly towards the center, slightly towards the toe, that is. So this is actually a pretty decent pattern. On the coastal side, it's also nicely centered as well. Good. And here the teeth that we actually added it to. This is not the best marking compound I have tried, but here you can see it as well. Heel, toe, drive side, coastal side. And on the drive side, again, not fully towards the heel, but definitely in that direction. And once we add load to it, it will move slightly towards the toe. So this is about as good as we'll get it without start messing with a lot of different pinion shims and backlash measurements again. And here on the coastal side, also pretty centered. With the crown wheel and pinion now fully cleaned of the marking compound, we can go ahead and put this together once and for all. Place this in here. Then we'll add new O-rings to the bearing caps. We'll grab new bearing cap bolts. Then we'll install these here, and remember this tab upwards. Also, just add a bit of lubricant to the O-ring here. Lock it in place so that it doesn't drop out. And then we'll push it past the O-rings. There. Just tighten 2 of them by finger so it doesn't go anywhere. And we'll try to push this past the O-ring. There. Good. And tighten these 2 here, fingers only. All right. Then we can add the rest of them. And then final torque, 22 Newton meters. There. Then we can go ahead and install the axles, and we'll just lightly coat the lip here in the seal and add some to the axle as well. There, that's one. If it doesn't push in easily, just turn it a little bit and then try again. We're just going to pour in a full liter and then we can top it off afterwards. This here cleaned with brake cleaner so that it's fully free of dirt and grease. We'll take some gasket maker and add a very fine layer. Not so much that you can actually push it out once you install the cover, but just enough to actually cover the metal here. Then we take this paper gasket and we do the same with the cover here. A super light coat. Then we add this cover, grab new bolts, and then to not have anything fall in there, the easy way of doing this is carefully placing O-ring and then pushing this through. Some new bolts. We'll just tighten these a little bit. And now for torquing the 8 bolts here down. And these here we need to tighten to 45 Newton meter, and we'll do it in a star pattern. And then just give the gasket maker and all time to cure, and then we can flip it over. Then with the gasket maker cured, we can now go ahead and torque the lower one to 65 Newton meter. The upper one here we'll just uninstall again and then pour in oil until oil comes out on its own. Just below the surface. Good. Wipe that off. Add this one and torque it to spec. And voila, the rear end is done.